Hi guys, my name's Sarah Beth Hopton and I am one of the 20 some odd students in Dr. Moxley's Rhetoric and Composition class, and I am submitting this short vlog for Susan and Sandy's digital monument project. So in the confessional style, I'm just going to take the questions as they are and answer them as best I can. So the first question is, how did what we learned in the class benefit you in understanding rhetoric or my understanding of technology's place in our field? So I think that this class benefited my understanding of rhetoric in a couple of ways, but the most beneficial and obvious way was in the readings, the blogs, and in the independent presentations that we were constructed. So I say that the blogs were beneficial because to me they forced me to retrieve information from sources that I might not otherwise have encountered or accessed, and then make sense of them and write about them in a way that was coherent and clear and concise and had a particular tone, with a mind to the fact that this was going to be published for a public audience or semi-public audience. These exercises reminded me to focus on rhetorical principles like purpose, audience, and tone, the things that we tell our students to focus on when they write and publicly publish. I particularly enjoyed the flexibility of the class format because I think it was an opportunity to practice or perform a renegotiated kind of pedagogy, and one where the instructor is not the center of knowledge but helps direct students to the pertinent information, acting more as a coach or a guide on the side, if you want to use a silly term like that. But more importantly, encouraging the student to develop their own learning path or their own learning platform and to negotiate the space through the new media landscape on their own. This was really reflective of concepts like the new media ecology. We heard that term again and again. And so for me, this was a way to practice my own negotiation of that new media ecology. And I think that in the end, that'll make me a better instructor because I got to practice and perform it here in a safe space first. The second question is, what specific technological tools were most helpful in the class, and would I feel comfortable using these in my own class? There wasn't really a specific tool that I didn't know or didn't have some familiarity with, but I think I'm a little unusual because technology is sort of my sub-discipline. So while there wasn't anything new or novel in the platforms or the blogs or the vlogs or any of those tools, I think what was really novel for me and what I particularly enjoyed was the discussion of the tools and the discussion of both the help and the hindrance that other instructors felt utilizing digital tools in a digital space would be for them in their classrooms. The most remarkable discussions for me usually centered around some more of the provocative issues. I was particularly interested in the ethics of hacking and the inherent gifting nature of some hacktivist activities. That was all very titillating to me. And I guess as far as professionally, what would I use? What digital tools would I use? Well, I know that for me, allowing students or helping and enabling students to build an online digital portfolio that is transportable or has some transferability is really important. So depending on where technology is when I'm finally out in the classroom full time, I'm sure that I will take some of the concepts and ideas that we used in this class and the experience we had with these tools and leverage those in such a way that I'll be able to successfully create an experience where my students can create these online portfolios that move with them through a curriculum and then out into the professional world. How has the concept of play impacted your connection not only with the class materials but also the sense of community in our class? Certainly the playfulness of the class seemed to improve my sense of connection with others because it fostered a kind of joie de vivre or a jouissance, which was the word that was kicked around a lot, that I'm not sure is always in traditional classes. So in that way I thought it was very good. I think that managing the right balance of play with work was a constant but really good source of tension for all of us. Revisiting that idea of balancing play with work is a good renegotiation to have constantly. So for me, coming up with unique and creative ways to manage the inflow and outflow of ideas and personalities and conversations was really helpful. Because if we could do it on a level of doctoral students, then no idea is silly. An example, having the jar of pennies and passing the pennies, or giving away pennies and collecting pennies as a way to build up capital so that you can talk. That was a brilliant idea. I think it was very successful as a very successful way to manage the conversation on a large scale. Some of the other ideas that we used that I thought were successful included the bouncing ball, the beach ball that we passed back and forth, and then of course we made that an object. And I thought all of that was really successful. Sometimes I fear that if I integrate tools like that, my students will feel like I'm being condescending, or I'm talking down to them, or I'm corny, God forbid. So to see that work on this level was really important and helpful. But I think overall, my last final impression would be that this class was particularly brilliant in that it encouraged an ethic of play. And, as it is when you point your attention to anything for a period of time, you start to see that something everywhere, right? So if I wanted to buy a bright orange VW bug, I suddenly would start seeing it everywhere. And such was the case with this class. Once I started thinking about playfulness, and integrating play as in the curriculum and as a pedagogical construct, I suddenly started hearing this idea everywhere in the strangest places. For example, I was listening to an NPR conversation the other day, Krista Tippett's on Being, which is a podcast, and she was interviewing a Midrashic scholar who was talking about the idea of the narrative of the mirror in the Torah. And anyway, what she was saying was it was the women's playfulness, their ability to play and encourage the playfulness of their enslaved husbands in the field, that eventually led to the liberation of the people, and so on and so forth. So my point is that suddenly I have been able to experience and see this idea that play infuses life everywhere, and now I'm much more sensitive to it. I ironically take play much more seriously as a tool that I can use as a professor. And I think it's really a very valuable ethic to encourage in your personal life, but also in the classroom. And for me, I'm certainly going to make a concerted effort to renegotiate the power dynamics of my class, infuse it with play, and certainly leverage the technology that's so wonderfully available to us and our students to make them more active participants in their learning. So that's all I have to say. Thanks so much. We'll see you next semester. Bye.